Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is Tim Burton's take on the Roald Dahl classic novel, and we've got a golden ticket to all the awesome hidden details and Easter eggs. Let's get a move on, kids. There's far too much to see. It's possible that you're more familiar with Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the 1971 version starring Gene Wilder as the eccentric Candyman Willy Wonka. Did you know that a lot of people were skeptical about Tim Burton's remake, including the original Wonka himself? While Burton's movie was in production, Gene Wilder told the Daily Telegraph he was worried the filmmakers were simply remaking Wonka as a blatant cash grab. However, Burton's Willy Wonka, Johnny Depp, defended the new movie, saying it was not a remake but a new adaptation of the novel. By the way, did you know that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory marked the fifth movie for Tim Burton and Johnny Depp? By the movie's release, their partnership spanned 15 years. The first film they made together was the 1990 bittersweet offbeat romance Edward Scissorhands. There are other familiar Burton collaborators in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as well, but it was Depp who brought another key player to the mix. Freddie Highmore plays Charlie Bucket, the poor young chap with a heart of gold who finds himself a ticket to the experience of a lifetime. Did you know Freddie was only 13 years old when he made the movie? This wasn't Freddie's first rodeo, however. A year prior, he'd starred in the tearjerker Finding Neverland with none other than Johnny Depp. Depp played J.M. Barrie, playwright at the children's classic Peter Pan, and Highmore played Peter Davies, one of Barrie's inspirations. Depp was so impressed with Freddie's performance in the movie that he put Highmore on Tim Burton's radar for the part of Charlie Bucket. As easy as it was to cast Charlie, Grandpa Joe was another story. David Kelly is an Irish actor with a long list of stage and screen credits, yet he's probably most recognizable to American audiences as Grandpa Joe in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Did you know that another Hollywood legend was supposed to play the part? Gregory Peck, star of such classics as To Kill a Mockingbird, The Omen, and both versions of Cape Fear, was considered for the role. Sadly, Peck passed away before accepting Grandpa Joe, and director Tim Burton was finding it more and more difficult to cast the part. It just so happened Burton met David Kelly at Pinewood Studios when Kelly was doing a wardrobe fitting for another project. According to Kelly, their meeting took 3 minutes and he had the part. Another fun fact, Johnny Depp's not the only Wonka Kelly's worked with. Kelly featured in Quackser Fortune Has a Cousin in the Bronx, a 1970 comedy starring Gene Wilder. Speaking of Wonka, one of the character's most recognizable features is his cane, which is where we find this next delicious detail. When the children first meet Mr. Wonka, after his animatronic introduction literally goes up in flames, pay close attention to his cane. It's actually a long cylinder encasing little bits of candy. But not just any candy, nerds. Nerds are bite-sized tart clusters, usually fruit-flavored, that were created by the real Willy Wonka Candy Factory in 1983. Here's another interesting detail worth pointing out in this scene. Take a look at the order in which everyone's standing. Child on the left, caretaker on the right, all except Veruca Salt. This isn't random, this is Burton's sly way of showing the audience who's really in charge of the relationship between Veruca and her father. She may be able to walk all over her own dad, but there's no love lost between her and Willy Wonka, that's for sure. When Veruca introduces herself shortly after, Mr. Wonka says, "I always thought a verruca was a type of wart." Well, he's kinda right. Verruca plantaris is a painful wart caused by the human papillomavirus and develops on the foot. Maybe Wonka moonlights as a podiatrist. This is actually not an isolated incident where the character inspiration is concerned. During pre-production, director Tim Burton visited Roald Dahl's old home. Felicity Dahl, Roald Dahl's widow, recalled watching Burton enter the author's famed writing shed and saying, "This is the Bucket's house." She thought to herself, "Thank God, somebody gets it," and with that, she showed Burton the original handwritten manuscripts. To Burton's surprise, they included a bunch of politically incorrect elements not found in the final book, including a child named Herpes. Yeah, we'll take Veruca. The gang's all present and accounted for as the spoiled children are concerned: Veruca, Augustus, Violet, and Mike. But no version of Wonka's factory would be complete without the tireless and morally uncompromised Oompa Loompas from Loompa-land. Unlike the 1971 movie, Burton's version treats us to a flashback that shows exactly how Wonka came to find and save them from their terrible plight. Notice how in Loompa-land they live in hive-like treehouses? File that in the back of your mind, because you'll notice that later on, when Wonka and his remaining guests head to the television room by glass elevator, they pass rooms that look like industrial versions of the pods from the trees. Could these be Oompa Loompa quarters? Looks like Wonka spared no expense in helping his workforce feel right at home. That workforce, by the way, was composed of a half a year of takes and performances, all done by one performer, Deep Roy. After all other options such as child actors and little ladies weren't working out, Deep convinced Burton that he could play all the Oompa Loompas. The Oompa Loompas and their synchronized movements are literally several hundred performances by Roy spliced together with digital effects magic. The accomplishment bumped Roy's salary to $1 million, and Tim Burton called Roy the hardest working man in show business. Oddly enough, one sequence did call for a number of highly skilled performers. Did you know that the majority of the squirrels featured on camera in the nut-cracking scene were played by 40 real-life squirrels? The squirrels came from England and underwent intense training to sit on stools while they shelled and divided the nuts. Speaking of nuts, there's probably nothing nuttier at Wonka's factory than the man himself. Johnny Depp goes for broke with his interpretation of the character as a genius man-child with hidden emotional trauma, though he once stated on the Ellen DeGeneres show that his inspiration for Wonka was a young George Bush under specific medicinal influences. He also pulled ideas from some of the author Roald Dahl's other works. In The Dragon Boat, Veruca rudely interrupts Wonka when he repeats himself about the chocolate waterfall. Willie responds by saying he was never as short as the children, even growing up. This line is a little doff of the cap to another of Roald Dahl's creations, the merciless, hulking principal, Miss Trunchbull from Matilda. In the novel and the film, she's constantly griping about children, their stature, and the fact that she never was one. This speaks volumes about how poor Willie might resent the children, because he himself never got the chance to just be a kid. Willy Wonka's dad, Dr. Wilbur Wonka, is an overbearing dentist played by screen veteran Christopher Lee. Lee made a name for himself in the 70s as various characters, especially as Count Dracula in the Hammer series of horror films. But you might remember him best as Saruman from the Lord of the Rings universe or Count Dooku from Star Wars. His screen time may be limited, but his influence on his son Willie is felt throughout. In a flashback sequence, Dr. Wonka confiscates young Willie's Halloween candy while Willie, played by Blair Dunlop, watches helplessly behind a monstrous rig of dental headgear. At one point, Dr. Wonka tells him that some people are allergic to chocolate. Did you know that Johnny Depp was one of those people? As a kid, Depp would break out in a rash because of chocolate. And although the allergy subsided, as an adult he apparently doesn't care much for it. Believe it or not, there's one chewy treat that even Willy Wonka despises. After Violet Beauregarde experiences the side effects of the three-course gum, Veruca asks Wonka if she'll always be a blueberry. He tells her that he doesn't know, but that chewing gum all day is a disgusting habit. Now, why would that be? Well, it's said that chewing gum between meals can prevent plaque buildup, a fact Wonka probably knew being the son of a dentist. Did you know that the first person to patent chewing gum was a man named William Finley Semple? Semple was also a dentist. Notice how Willie constantly shows his perfect white teeth whenever he smiles. This is because of his dentist father, who spent so much time nurturing his son's teeth. He neglected the poor boy's heart. Did you know that Wilbur was a character created for the movie? Perhaps this has more to do with director Tim Burton's relationship with his own parents growing up. More on that later. But while we're on the subject of teeth, there is one thing both Willy Wonka and Charlie Bucket have in common. Charlie's dad, William Bucket, played by Noah Taylor, is also in the dental trade. Well, sort of. He works in quality control at the Smilex toothpaste factory, making sure that all the lids are acceptable. But hold on a minute. Does the name Smilex ring a bell? That's because Smilex was the name of the poisonous ingredient engineered by the Joker to wreak havoc on the people of Gotham in Tim Burton's 1989 blockbuster Batman. Another classic film doesn't just get the reference treatment but actually makes a cameo in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. In the television room where Wonka is experimenting on transferring candy bars into people's televisions, pay close attention to the monkey footage on the TV. This is no ordinary nature show. If you don't recognize it yet, don't worry. The movie gives you a little hint. Listen to the music cue when the giant candy bar is brought in. The piece is called Also Sprach Zarathustra by Richard Strauss, a composition made famous over 70 years after its initial creation thanks to its use in the landmark Stanley Kubrick film 2001: A Space Odyssey. That movie, of course, includes a scene with monkeys and an ominous pillar that Willy Wonka and his Oompa Loompas successfully replace with a Wonka bar. To say that Wonka bars are in high demand in this movie is an understatement, but even before the contest, there's no denying the wide reach of the Wonka brand. Take a look at the Wonka bars in each country at the height of the contest craze. The Wonka logo is largely present, but the filmmakers made sure to change the language on the wrappers based on where they're sold. You can even see the German version of the wrapper when Augustus Gloop drops his bar in the chocolate room. But no one holds the chocolate bar more sacred than Charlie Bucket. Charlie and his family really struggle to make ends meet, living in a dilapidated home with 3 generations. Just about everything is a luxury to the Buckets, including candy bars. Take a look at the wall in Charlie's attic bedroom. Wonka bars are so special, Charlie keeps the wrappers of every chocolate bar he's ever had and displays them like posters. He's truly Wonka's biggest fan. If you're a fan of Willy Wonka and Roald Dahl, then you know there's a book sequel to the story Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. Sadly, it's never been made into a movie. Roald Dahl denied the rights after being discouraged by the 1971 film. and Tim Burton for his part expressed no interest in adapting the sequel either. Maybe it's because he established the closure he needed. Remember when we said we'd return to Burton's strained relationship with his parents? Pay very close attention to the scene when Charlie escorts Willie back to his father's house. Remember how Dr. Wonka had framed highlights of his son's accomplishments hanging on the wall? This was inspired by a trip Tim Burton took to visit his dying mother in 2002. In his experience, Burton found that his mother had saved and displayed framed posters of his movies. She was obviously proud of her offbeat son. I hope you liked the video and found a new appreciation for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Make sure you subscribe to Movie Logic for more daily movie facts, trivia, and Easter eggs.